Everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Final Down NFL podcast with me, Jim, Denver Dave, and Punk Raider. We're here to talk NFL, boys. How are we doing?
I'm back from my one-game suspension for illegal touching.
Oh, who this time?
It was no one else. It was just, Jim had to sit there on camera watching me. That's all it was.
Boys, Wildcard weekend is over, and we need to review those games before they're moving on to talk about the divisional round. And we'll probably do that in a separate podcast because, well, timings and things. So we're going to go straight through. We're going to do like 60-second reviews. Hopefully, we're going to stay to 60 seconds. And
wow, this is going to be a really quick podcast. If we're doing 60-second reviews,
I'm going to try and make
this is going to be lightning. I try and
condense a review as much as I can. So I want to be 60 seconds.
You've never done a 60-second review in your life. What's that?
With like Falcons and Cardinals. Things like that, so.
Let's be honest. The length of this podcast is not normally nothing to do with Jim. It's me and you rabbiting on Punk. That's normal.
That's true.
We're all about the length. That's what it is.
Okay, let's go from the start. And Saturday saw the start of Wildcard weekend and a division matchup with Seattle in Santa Clara to take on the Niners. And for the first half, at least, the Seahawks were hanging in with their division-winning rivals. A Christian McCaffrey 68-yard run started a touchdown drive that ended with McCaffrey catching the short pitch 4 plays later to see the Niners up by 10. The Seahawks shot back with a rushing touchdown for Kenneth Walker III and a 50-yard catch and run for DK Metcalf that saw Seattle take the lead. And the last-second field goal following Jimmy Ward with a flagged late hit on the sliding Geno Smith gave the Seahawks the lead at halftime. But in the second half, the Niners found a gear the Seahawks just have only hit in flashes this season, as the offense reeled off scores on every drive, a rushing touchdown on a QB sneak for Brock Purdy, a rushing touchdown for Elijah Mitchell, and a 74-yard catch and run touchdown for Deebo Samuel, while the Seahawks drive chart read a sack fumble recovery, a punt, and an interception. So when DK got his second touchdown of the game late on, it had no effect on the result. 2 sacks for Niners defensive end Charles Omenihu, including that fumble, and the Seahawks can now fully focus on what to do with their 5th overall pick. The final score was the Seattle Seahawks 23, San Francisco 49ers 41.
Oh, you want us to speak now? So I was just waiting to see whether or not that went 60 seconds. So
was anyone timing it? I don't know. I think it's close.
I wasn't timing it. But this kind of went the way we expected it to. Really. Seattle always looked like they were just about hanging on, but it always felt like they had a mistake in them, or were just not quite up to the same level of play that the 49ers were. I never really felt like Seattle were going to win this. No one was playing particularly badly. It just always felt like the 49ers had another gear to go to if they needed to. Which they did in the second half just to open up that gap and kind of make sure. So, I think good game for the 49ers, good game for Brock Purdy. It's quite obvious that they didn't end up with a quarterback that froze in the playoffs. The game didn't look too big for him. I think as far as the 49ers are concerned, I think everything went as well as it could have done for them, and they'll be ridiculously happy. I think the Seahawks have had a good season. I think they need to go away and make a decision on Geno. I think Kenneth Walker has been a major plus for them. I think he's kind of proven himself to be probably the best of those kind of first and second year running backs that we have floating around the league at the minute. Mm-hmm. I think the Seahawks can look back and say they've had a good season. But now they really need a proper battle plan for going into the draft and free agency to make sure they come back again next year and don't just sink without a trace.
I watched this game with the wife, and she had a really hot take on it that articulates it better than I can, and in shorter terms, which I'm sure everyone's grateful for. She said the Seahawks, well, what she said is the other team in white, they're really good on certain plays, but the team in red are really good everywhere. And in a weird way, that's kind of the best way to describe this game. The Seahawks are a good team in certain parts of their game. The 49ers are great everywhere. Every part of the field, every phase of play, they're fantastic. And it's exactly what she says. So, yeah, Mrs. B does well. She knows what she's talking about. The one question...
Can we do a trade? Is it too late in the season to do a trade? Punk?
Trade deadline's gone. Trade deadline.
Oh, damn it! All right,
But
well,
it's all right. I'm out of contract at the end of the season, so we can pick up one question I've got for Jim though is obviously we all know that you're a Mahomes fanboy, and now with your loving for Kenneth Walker, who's got that one place in your heart? Who's the?
Luckily, Dave, they don't play the same position, so I don't have to pick and choose between the two. It's absolutely fine.
So you have
for the purposes of
one
this,
man crush for every position, then? Do you?
Yeah, yeah. Why not?
Okay, interesting.
I mean, who's your man crush punter? That's what I want to know.
I was going to look for the right guard personally, but
I mean, right guard. There's only one choice. Obviously, it's DeCastro. Must have been.
Let's just say then that the reason that I pushed Mahomes so much because I saw what he could be coming out of college, and I said he was my favorite QB coming out of that draft. And Kenneth Walker is just now that everyone knows about Mahomes, I can move on and put more effort into Kenneth Walker. But now he's blown up as well, so it's going to be the next one up. Who's coming out of the draft this year?
I fail to believe that any player playing in a Cliff Kingsbury offense would shine. I fail to believe that to be the case, but okay, I believe
he did. Yeah. Yeah, so there we go. I mean, yeah, it's so good to see that Kenneth Walker's had a great season. He's good enough. Tariq Woolen as well was another one that was a later pick for them, I think 5th round. But yeah, he's been right up there, defensive rookie of the year candidate, and the stats alone would kind of push him up there.
Woolen's been.
They're ahead. They're like I said after the game on Twitter. They're both on the ladder. There's different stages of that ladder. And we weren't expecting the Rams to be as piss poor as they were this year. It gave an opening for Seattle to really push forwards with Geno not being the Geno we'd ever seen before. Given a really raw deal at the Jets.
No, he's
sit behind a lot of other good quarterbacks, and it's taken a long time, but he had a chance and he believed in himself. And yeah, he's done as good as he could have done. I think they need to, like we said earlier on in another podcast, they need to sign him to at least a 3-year deal. It'll be a nice contract for the Seahawks to manage and still attract free agency. And if they keep drafting the way they're doing, then they're going to be very scary. So nothing but positives for the Seahawks. But 49ers are a bit of a juggernaut. It's hard to find problems with the 49ers. I'm struggling.
I mean, you've got to look really, really hard to poke holes in that 49ers team. Mm-hmm. You can possibly say that cornerbacks don't always hold up well against big receivers. I mean, I think DK Metcalf had a fantastic game. He kind of had Javarius Ward on toast a couple of times. But, it's you really are nitpicking when you're looking at this 49ers team and trying to find problems rather than being glaring mistakes or glaringly obvious holes.
I think there's two main holes in this 49ers team. Number one is the quarterback. Now, I know Brock Purdy's come in and done brilliantly, but there's a huge difference between a wildcard game, then divisional games, championship games, and Super Bowls. They're a world apart. So that's an obvious area, but he's done everything he needs to be. He's done everything.
The counter I'd say to that is that apart from Mahomes, every other quarterback in this playoff scenario is in the same boat, pretty much. There's only Jalen Hurts with one playoff game.
Josh Allen's gone to a championship game.
Josh Allen's had a couple, and Burrow's had a couple. But apart from Mahomes, none of them have won consistently.
I agree. The other part to it is no one in that team has won a Super Bowl, so there's no experience in. We've been there, we've done it. That week in between Super Bowl. In the championship games and the Super Bowl, yeah, that when it comes down to it in key moments, in that experience to say, look, guys, calm down, we're doing this, we're doing that, the decision making, that's a big thing. That's one of the reasons the Patriots were so consistent, and this team doesn't have that. But
I think you're getting way too far ahead of yourself.
That's what I'm saying.
Start talking about things like that.
In terms of pure experience in key moments, I'm not talking necessarily in Super Bowls. I'm talking about in divisional games, in championship games, those key moments that matter. But all over the field in terms of pure talent, they're fantastic. Really are.
And Robbie Gould was still perfect in the playoffs. 4 field goals and 3 extra points. Bang, 15 points off Gould's leg. So, yeah, the 49ers move on. We're going to move on as well to the next game on Saturday night. Game of the week. Don't call it a comeback, boys. But my, oh my, if you don't know about the Chargers, This is the most Charger game I've ever seen. Up 27-0 in Jacksonville. They intercept Trevor Lawrence 4 times, 3 of those by Asante Samuel Jr., who only managed 2 picks in the regular season, and in a punt that bounced off a Jags returner's helmet for a fumble recovery. And there was no reason why a decent football team would give up this game. In fact, the 19 times a team has -5 turnover differential, they've never come back. It's cue Trevor Lawrence hair flicking that first 28 minutes off and starting a run of 4 back-to-back touchdown drives with passing scores to Evan Engram, Marvin Jones, Zay Jones, and Christian Kirk, adding a field goal on the final drive following a ballsy 4th-and-1 conversion, and the Jags could celebrate the 3rd biggest postseason comeback in history. The final score was the LA Chargers 30, Jacksonville Jaguars 31.
You know,
I'm so glad I stayed up for this game.
I watched the full highlights of this game, and I got to just before halftime, and it was getting towards a blowout, and I thought, I'm not watching the rest. I've got no time for watching the Chargers routing the Jags. So I turned it off, and then one of my friends texted me, he's a Jags fan, and he said, "Oh my God, did you watch the game last night?" And I went, "No, I've watched half of it. Don't tell me the rest." So I went back and carried on watching it. Jags scored, and I was like, okay, surely not. And then it went from the sublime to the ridiculous, and it became one of the most enjoyable games, not necessarily for the quality on the field, but for what was happening and the scenario of it, to being absolutely fantastic in the 4th when the Jags ended up winning it. It was unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. The most Chargerish thing ever to have happened.
I was sensible because I'm an old man. I went to bed at half-time thinking that was done.
No,
I did.
It did finish like 4 a.m. It was like 4:30.
Yeah, exactly.
I was dead.
Yeah, no, it was about half past 2. I was kind of like, yeah, no, that's it. I'm tapping out.
I support that decision 100% to go to bed at halftime because there's no reason to stay up.
Yeah, exactly. The Jags have shown absolutely nothing. You know, Trevor Lawrence was flicking his hair here, there, and everywhere, but just giving the ball to the Chargers constantly. I didn't see any reason for that to change in a 12-minute halftime window. You know, it was it's kind of weird because, you know, out of all those other kind of playoff games where teams have come back, so I'm thinking specifically around the Bills coming back on the Oilers and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I don't ever remember a quarterback throwing 4 interceptions in one half and then being able to turn his game around that much. Whatever was said to him at halftime, it definitely worked. I mean, that goes without saying. But
one of the scores was before halftime, so he just seemed to kind of just, like I said, hair flicked off the issues. He just seemed to ignore what had happened before and keep going, and that is so impressive. That is more impressive than just done 4 touchdowns and 9 interceptions.
He seems to be playing with a supreme confidence at the minute. That, exactly like you say, it doesn't matter if he makes a mistake because he's forgotten about it by the time he's walked off the field. You see with a lot of quarterbacks, you know, they kind of take those issues with them, and even great quarterbacks have had games where, you know, they've made a couple of bad passes and they can't get it out of their head and they just can't get anything going. But I don't know. I don't know what his coaching staff is saying to him, but whatever it is, it's working. Because he's been like this now for 5 or 6 weeks, you know? I mean, yeah, Pedersen's a quarterback whisperer, but, you know, there are other people around him as well that are obviously saying the right things to get him going. So, and I mean, if you think where he was the first few weeks of the season to where he's been playing the last few weeks of the season, it's night and day. It really is. So, yeah. Called it, but wasn't quite in the manner that.
Yeah, I didn't cash out my bet of my 6-team Macca.
No.
Yeah, he had a QBR of 0 before halftime.
Was it as much as that? Wow.
Yeah, it was as much as 0. Yeah, and he ended with a QBR of 31.6. So considering what he had done, and obviously they hate interceptions. He ended with 288 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. Average pass yard was 6.1. It's difficult to really put into words what he did there. And on the other side, let's talk about the Chargers, because obviously we won't talk about them again this season. Brandon Staley stopped being Brandon Staley. I think Nick Wright had that the most perfect way possible. He started playing very conservative as a head coach. He hasn't been fired as of yet. They have fired offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi, and QB coach Shane Day. So there have been some heads rolling after that. And it's difficult to blame anyone but the offense when, okay, the defense were giving up touchdowns, but they had given 4 turnovers in this game. And the Jags did turn over the Chargers on offense. The Chargers offense just couldn't move in the second half.
The Chargers offense did that classic thing that the Raiders have done all season, where they've got to a certain point in the game, gone, oh, well, that's enough. We don't need to worry anymore. Gone completely conservative in their play calling. So everyone's taken their foot off the pedal and then can't get it back going again once the Jags start getting within touching distance. Yeah. They've backed themselves into the corner. It's something that we did all season long. Certainly in those losses where we had leads at half time. And it comes down to poor play calling. It comes down to poor play calling, bad coaching, and, you know, just like we were saying about Trevor Lawrence being able to throw off the mistakes. Herbert didn't manage to get himself going again. He you know, no one really helped him out, but equally, he wasn't able to just trudge off the field, forget that mistake, and come back fresh. It always looked like the pressure was starting to build on him. So, you know, Charger's going to charge you. We called it last week. We said that the Jags would win this game. Yeah, I didn't expect the Charger offense to be so good in one half and so bad in the other half. But on the grand scheme of things, it probably evens itself out.
Closest they got was a missed 40-yard field goal in the second half. That's as close as they got to scoring points.
One of my thoughts on it was that I kept on expecting the Chargers to try and run the ball, try and drain some clock in the second half, remove momentum, because it never felt like Trevor Lawrence was off the field for more than 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And momentum was key. Yep. What you want is, you're going to say, okay, you're playing well, are you? Fine. I'm going to keep you off the field for 9 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they needed a big stop and a big drive.
And they just couldn't do it. I mean, Austin Eckler, who's a great back, but we know what he is. He's an outside zone and, you know, he's a receiving back. 13 attempts for 35 yards. I mean, that's not draining the clock. And Justin Herbert's a lot of things, but he's not got massive wheels on him. So it kind of stopped them from really running down the clock and preventing the Jags offense from being on the field. That's one of the key things, along with, as you say, individual errors and terrible play calling.
I mean, we say it every year, don't we? You know, and when you get to the playoffs, you have to be able to run the football because it is the only way you can control the clock. And it becomes more and more obvious as the NFL becomes more and more of a passing league that it is the teams that also have the ability to run that will do well in the playoffs. And those that don't have a full-on proper running game, like the Chargers and various other teams that we'll come to later, don't do as well. They just can't get the balance and can't control the clock.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing, balance, and it's also balance on defense. Because I was kind of expecting the presence of Calvin Noy on defense for the Chargers to be and Khalil Mack to be a real presence, but the amount of times it was third and medium, and they were sending 5 blitzers, and what are you doing? Just hang back.
Well, it didn't help. I mean, it didn't help that Bosa seemed to be losing his rag every 5 minutes as well. Yeah. He was. I've never seen him react like that. I'd love to know.
It's that Marco Materazzi Zinedine Zidane thing. Someone said something. I'd love to know what they said to get him to react like that. It's that kind of thing, isn't it? I guarantee someone's whispered a sweet nothing in his ear, and he's gone right.
Maybe he carried it on the sideline. He was just angry throughout that second half.
Maybe it's just that, you know what? His younger brother was playing in the game before him, and everyone says how brilliant your brother is. And it's that, I'll show everyone how good I actually am. And he didn't in this game. It's as simple as that.
We need to move on because you guys are enjoying this Charger loss far too much. All right. So let's move on. It's a Sunday afternoon. Okay. What was expected to be a cakewalk with Miami down to their third string QB in Skylar Thompson and the Dolphins having failed to beat the Bills twice already this season did not go according to plan. Miami, though down early thanks to Bills touchdowns for Dawson Knox and James Cook, fought back with 3 field goals and a touchdown pass to Mike Gesicki to see the Dolphins only down by 3 at the break. On Buffalo's first play of the second half, Eric Rowe came through on a safety blitz, knocked the ball out of Allen's possession. It was scooped up by Zach Sealer and ran into the end zone for a defensive score. Skyler was outplaying his projections, but a 3rd and 19 conversion attempt was picked by Kaiir Elam, and Josh Allen got his second passing touchdown on the day to Cole Beasley on the following drive. The 3rd touchdown pass went to Gabe Davis before Miami responded with a Jeff Wilson diving score. In the end, the Bills were holding on to this one with sloppy play calling against the Dolphins team that would be thinking, what if Tua had been healthy? The final score was the Dolphins 31, Bills 34.
What if Teddy Bridgewater would have been healthy?
If anyone else would have been healthy.
What if anyone had been healthy?
I mean, what if there weren't a dozen drop catches? I was talking to a Dolphins fan today.
Well, that's the thing for me.
He was doing a drinking game, taking one shot of whiskey every time a pass was dropped. And by the end
of the first quarter, he'd have been smashed.
One thing that everyone kept on saying on commentary and on analysis, especially a halftime show as well, is how much they felt sorry for Skylar Thompson because he was put into a difficult situation and he'll forever have comparisons drawn to Brock Purdy. I'm sorry. This guy is an undrafted, well, I'm not sure if he was undrafted free agent or very late round, but either or. And he's played a playoff game and been given an opportunity and has come out of it looking okay, actually. How are we feeling sorry for this guy? He's living the dream.
Because he was literally drafted 10 picks before Purdy.
Yeah, so he's drafted a seventh round.
So it's the same as Purdy.
Seventh round quarterback.
Yeah. Which is why you feel sorry for him.
Yeah,
he's not.
Everyone's saying,
exactly.
"Oh,
he's
why
not in a situation?
He's living the dream. He's been given the opportunity, and you know what? Fair play to him because he's not come out of it. We haven't come out of it. He's not in the same bracket as Nate Peterman, for example. He's lost to the Bills. A lot of people's thought of Super Bowl winners, even now, by 3 points. Fair play to the lad. Well done to him.
Skylar Thompson to me can come off that field and absolutely throw shade at Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Because in that first half, they were dropping everything. He was putting balls on the numbers, and they were just letting it go. And
this was the thing. The one thing I don't think that the commentators were making enough of is not only were they drops, but they were bad drops. I mean, they weren't good
easy
passes that were being dropped.
They were easy catches.
But well done, Skylar Thompson. Even though he's got a girl's name, he's done really well.
The thing I liked about this game more than anything, I think, was the momentum shifts. It was the momentum shifts because you had the Bills going up 17-0, just and a couple of minutes before half time, you're sitting there going, "Yeah, this is exactly how we called it. It's going to be a 34-3 blowout or something ridiculous." And then there was that mad couple of minutes just before half time where all of a sudden the Dolphins were got themselves back on level terms, near enough. And then straight coming out from the half time and into the third quarter, you're sitting there going, right, the Bills are going to knuckle down now and pull away and do exactly what the 49ers did, and they just didn't. They couldn't. They weren't allowed to. The Dolphins, I mean, the Bills got some big chunk plays and so on and so forth, but the Dolphins defense held up pretty well. They were getting pressure on Allen. They weren't giving up consistently long drives and so on and so forth. Skyler was doing his bit. Even Gesicki was making catches, and they've hardly thrown to him this year. So it was interesting. I feel really sorry for the Dolphins in a way, in that it is that what if scenario, isn't it? If had they managed to have the whole season with Tua, or even maybe just the last part with Teddy, they would have been in such a better position to start with that A, they might not have even been playing the Bills, and B, they definitely would have had a chance in this game because the Bills were sloppy.
They were sloppy. I mean, Josh Allen had 2 interceptions in the first half. The second was on Cole Beasley, though. So, but the first one was just another hero ball that he's launched down the field.
Yeah.
He fumbled 3 times in this game, one being that defensive score, but there was another one where he just kind of lost the ball out of the field of play, and they managed to retain the possession on the third down. He was always playing hero ball. He has this innate ability to kind of mess things up, and although he's got such a cannon for an arm, he can't help himself.
It's almost like the game's not difficult enough for him, so he wants to make it harder for himself. Yeah, exactly. So he wants to. It's exactly what you were saying, hero ball. he wants to make it as hard as possible for himself so that he does come out with the shining light and so on and so forth. And the problem is, this season, we've said it all season long, he's never really put an entire game together. He's had halves and so on and so forth. But, he's not at any point put a full 60-minute game together. And if you're the Bills now looking at the rest of the playoffs, you've got to be worried about that. You've got to be worried that one of these better teams or better equipped teams are going to take advantage of what Josh Allen's doing. And it's all very well having Diggs going for 120 and Gabe Davis making toe tap catches in the end zone, but if your fundamentals aren't there, and again they've got away from the running game, and there was no running game to speak of for Buffalo really. I think the Bills have got some soul searching to do, and to be honest, they should have done it before now.
And no Von Miller to help him out either.
No Von Miller to help him out.
It's difficult to do soul searching when you end the season 14-3 and you've dominated many teams that you've come up against. Shannon Sharp was doing his show during the week, and he was saying it's really difficult at times when a coach tells you to do the basic fundamentals and you're like, yeah, we won by 30 points. And sometimes you need a car crash or a disaster to go, actually, the coaches know what they're talking about, and we need to get back to doing the basic fundamentals, like not trying to do hero ball, not fumbling it, not trying all these silly things that we don't need to do. I think the Chiefs have had that a couple of times where they've been shown up, and you can see now this season Mahomes is kind of getting back to doing the basic fundamentals that he needs to do and, playing sensible ball. We sat here at the beginning of the season going, are the Chiefs what we think they can be? And absolutely they are, because they're playing good fundamental football. The Bills are the opposite. They've got massive amounts of talent, but it's the fundamentals that are escaping them. Maybe this is the scare that they need. I doubt it. I doubt it, but it's going to. The thing is, that scare has to scare every player in the locker room, because when you come out of a season 14-3, you through the wild cards, you're now in the divisionals. It's a big thing. But then again, going up against the Chiefs, that's going to focus players a lot more. It'll be interesting to see what happens. That's all.
If they get to play the Chiefs, they've got to go through another team first. So let's move on to the second game then on Sunday. And the 13-4 NFC North Division champion Minnesota Vikings were hosting the New York Giants on Sunday evening. A Vikings team that had gone 11-0 in one-score games. The Giants, after a great start to the season, had only won 3 of their last 10 games. And those 3 wins were against the Texans, Commanders and Colts. Still, they'd been able to give themselves a bye week in Week 18 and looked fresh for this one. They needed to be, as the Vikings scored on the opening drive with a Kirk Cousins QB sneak. Daniel Jones was also using his legs, picking up first downs of his own, before a pitch to Saquon Barkley, who slammed his way 28 yards for a touchdown. A throw to Isaiah Hodgins put the Giants in the lead. That was Hodgins' 4th touchdown catch in the last 5 games. A KJ Osborne touchdown just before the half got the Vikings back close, but they would never take the lead again in this game. They got it back level with a touchdown catch from Irv Smith, and then the Greg Joseph field goal after they got flagged on the 4th and 1 attempt. But the Giants were just better in this one, and it was capped by a 12-play drive that just summed up the Giants' persistence in this one. Ending with Saquon getting his second score of the evening, the Vikings ended 11-1 in one-score games and are straight out of the playoffs. The final score was the Giants 31, Vikings 24.
Man of the match in this game is between either Daniel Jones, who protected the ball really well and did exactly what he needed to do, Saquon Barkley, who did everything key that we needed to do, or Isaiah Hodgins, who all of his 8 catches were on key downs and were all big plays. So, yeah, those are the big 3 guys for the Giants. But the Giants showed the Vikings up. The Vikings, I know it's only a one-score game, but the Vikings were on the periphery, and they got beat up. They got roughed in this game. They got beat at the line of scrimmage, and they never looked in it. I know it's a one-score game, and Vikings fans who didn't watch the game fully or kind of don't, casual fans are going to come away going, that was close. It wasn't. It really wasn't. And the Giants give them a good hiding, I think.
We said in the preview last week that Brian Dable will come out with a game plan that would absolutely play against the Vikings' worst fears. And they perfected it to a T. This was Dan Jones's best game as a Giant. I have no doubt in saying that. Every decision he made was correct, whether it was taking a short route, getting outside and throwing the ball away. He never, ever put his team in trouble once. I'm amazed. I mean, I thought it was a bit of a punt game for the Giants. I thought they're really going to have to run the ball properly. Saquon's going to have a massive day. And all those things happened. You know,
You know what's funny?
Um,
I obviously wasn't on the pod last week, and I was listening to it thinking, oh, if I'm on the podcast, I'm going for the Giants, and everyone's going to be shocked. And then Punk, you went, I'm going for the Giants. Then Jim's like, yeah, I'm going for the Giants as well. And I'm like, damn, I really thought I had a hot take then. Nah,
it was that
You went on a
week.
limb.
I had
No
the same
limb.
thing
all
with
of
the
us went for
Jags.
the Giants.
I thought I'd
was on
gone
a
on
limb
a
there.
limb with the Jags pick last
Yeah.
week, so and everyone had followed me.
I wasn't worried because I know that the Vikings can implode. They're very kind of cowboyish in the way that they can just look like they're great and have all these good skill positions, but then just never put it together. And
That defense is
that
not
11 and 0
good, man.
stat
It
is
really isn't
important
good.
because it means that they never got close. They didn't like ever blow out a team. Even weak teams
No.
they were close with, they couldn't properly
Well, they
get a dominant
were
win over
getting
anyone.
leads, weren't they? They were getting leads and then letting teams right back in it and just holding on and squeaking it out at the end. So, they had the same problem as everybody else in that they took their foot off the gas a lot and allowed teams back into it. But they never really, to me, like you said, they never really felt like they got to grips with the game. It never felt like they understood what the Giants were doing and were counteracting it at all. Usually in a game, you will see coaches making tweaks and very obvious differences between how a team starts in the first quarter and how it ends in the fourth quarter. And the Vikings didn't. They just kept doing the same things over and over again. It was, I don't care if Justin Jefferson is double teamed. Throw him the damn ball. You've seen what he can do. Look at that game against the Bills. He had that one drive where he basically had 80 yards with a triple team on him. You have to throw the ball to Jefferson, especially when you're behind and trying to push down the field. And as for that last play call, I mean, if you ever wanted the very obvious comparison to Derek Carr, it is 4th and 8 with 30 seconds left in a playoff game, and you throw a 3-yard out to a covered tight end.
I don't know why we're talking about this last play. They'd lost the game before that, right?
Oh no, they had.
Everyone was covered. Watch the drive.
Chance.
Watch the drive. Okay, you got to hear it. You got to just lob it up and hope that Justin brings it in.
Yeah.
But TJ Hawkinson had a great game. He caught 10 of 11 passes, 129 yards. He was
the only bright spot
talent.
they had.
Yeah. So why it's got half a chance.
Even Dalvin Cook wasn't going.
There's a chance he breaks that tackle and gets through. So I mean, it's not the stupidest play in the world. But you should always run to the sticks first before turning.
It goes back to what you said before about the plan A. Plan A is look for Jefferson. If Jefferson's covered, give it TJ Hawkinson. Plan B is revert to plan A. That's all they've got. The run game this season has not been great. If we look at Dalvin Cook, yes, he's got 1,100 yards again, almost exactly the same as last year. But they feel like they've been harder yards. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel as though he's been the explosive back that he's been in previous years.
He definitely beats up on weaker teams and has not done as well against good teams. I think if you were to look at the splits on his yards, and some of that's not even down to him, some of that's down to the offensive line and the play calling and so on and so forth. But Dalvin Cook's definitely not been as much of a factor this year as he has in previous years. And he was almost completely isolated out of this game. I mean, the fact that the Giants managed to take away both Cook and Jefferson pretty much left them going, well, we've only got TJ Hawkinson. So, and it's just as well they did, because otherwise they'd have been blown out.
Yeah, and Thielen had a few catches as well. But this Giants team was well structured. It was a very good unit on both sides of the ball. They didn't make mistakes. They were very efficient. It was very kind of Tom Coughlin-esque.
It was Giants football, wasn't it? Yeah. It was classic Giants football.
I've seen this Giants team before.
Yeah.
Not for a few years. I've seen them.
Every play was a chunk play. Every play was 8, 9, 10 yards. And if Daniel Jones didn't have anyone to throw to, it was fine. I'll run 9 yards.
Yeah.
And it almost felt like every second down was an option where you can go, do you know what? I can go deep because then I've got an easy third down conversion. So it felt like the Giants were, through interesting play calling and sensible play calling, giving themselves a real option to be able to play the game how they want rather than how the Vikings want.
Okay, on to Sunday night then. And in the game where I personally hoped both the Ravens and the Bengals would lose, I kind of got my wish. Yes, the Ravens technically lost this game if you look at the scoreboard, but the Bengals did not play well. Now, they rode their luck last year, but at least they also played well on offense. This game, it would be hard to argue the Bengals truly deserved this win. Baltimore were not paying Lamar. They were able to start second-string quarterback Tyler Huntley again. It was the Bengals with the early scoring, a field goal on the opening drive and a touchdown pass to Jamar Chase on the second, with an interception of Huntley in between. Many probably switched off, but the Ravens were not going to lie down this time. A J.K. Dobbins catch and a forced fumble of Hayden Hurst led to a Ravens field goal that gave the Ravens a 1-point halftime lead. A Joe Burrow quarterback sneak in the third and a 2-point conversion met with a 41-yard catch and run score for Demarcus Robinson to have the teams level. But the game-breaking play came with the Ravens at the goal line on third down. Huntley stretched out the ball, but it was knocked down into the hands of defensive end Sam Hubbard, who returned it 98 yards for the game-winning score. Baltimore go home with excuses. Not sure what the Bengals' excuses are. The final score was Baltimore 17, Cincinnati 24.
Where was Trent Irwin? That's all I want to know. I don't care about anything else.
I've got beef with you, mate, because I put money on that.
So did I.
I lost money on Trent Irwin, thanks to you. Why are they
I just assumed he meant Steve Irwin and got the names wrong, so I was all
It
right.
might as well have been Steve Irwin.
When the fun stops. When the fun stops, stop. Only bet what you're willing to lose.
True.
That's the... No,
we lost on
I
Trent
agree.
Irwin.
I can literally pick hole in nothing that you said. There's nothing I can add that's going to add any more insight. You're 100% correct.
Okay. Punk, do you want to agree with me as well?
I kind of do. It was a dire game. I'll be honest, I only watched the highlights because I had a feeling this might be a bit of a slugfest. And after doing the late night the night before, I was like, what, I'm gonna have to get myself tucked up fairly early. So I was quite glad that it was the late game, to be honest, because but I think you're right. The Ravens played an awful lot better than they played in that game last week.
Yeah,
that they lost, and I think last week probably helped their offense understand a bit more about what the Bengals defense do and how to move the ball on them. So from that point of view, it was good. I just don't know whether this Bengals team is as good as we think they are, or whether actually they're a bit more spotty than they were last year, a bit more luck inducing and kind of riding it a little bit and just playing a little bit on the fact that they've got Burrow and Chase and Mixon and all these kind of offensive weapons, a little bit like the Vikings do, but not actually necessarily having that game plan to really utilize them properly. It looked like a horrible game. I'm kind of glad I didn't watch all of it. But there may be a play in there that's worth talking about later. Who knows?
The Bengals have players that make you always know they've got a chance. Joe Burrow is legitimately one of the best three quarterbacks in the game right now. Jamar Chase is an elite wide receiver. T. Higgins is a great number two. You've got people like Tyler Boyd that come out of the woodwork.
Mixon's a top 10 running back.
I mean, he wasn't in this game. He got about 50 yards total.
No, not in this game.
No touchdown, but generally he can be. He's obviously dangerous. The problems that they've got are the problems they had last season. Eli Apple is not a good cornerback, and they kept him. They tried to retool the O-line, and it hasn't really given Joe Burrow any extra time. And now Jonah Williams has got a dislocated kneecap, so I don't think he's going to play this weekend. So that's another problem. They haven't really fixed the issues they had last year. And like I said, although they played well, they still rode their luck through the playoffs to get to the Super Bowl, and luck ran out against the Rams. So when you watch the game, and I did watch the entire game, the Ravens felt like the more complete team. As weird as that sounds, they were just stronger. They kind of dominated the line, both on offense and defense. And it was just because they don't have as many skill positions. They just couldn't really do as much with it. But it still came down to that one play. It was that one play, when all you've got to do, even if they didn't go for it on that, they just kicked a field goal, it would have been difficult, I think, for the Bengals to come back and score. They just didn't feel like they were going to score.
I mean, look, there's 11 minutes left in the game at that point, so it's difficult to know what would have happened after it. But, I do question a quarterback sneak from the 2-yard line. If it's a 1-yarder, absolutely, because you can find a gap. You can just stretch your arm out when you're 6'6" and kind of reach it, But from the 2, you've got to get some push onto the defensive line, and or you've got to really get up and over. And they didn't do that. For me, I would always run a running back in that situation. It's kind of similar to the Patriots Seahawks Super Bowl. Why aren't you utilizing a running back?
They've got Gus Edwards.
It's not quite the same.
Why can't you just use Gus Edwards on a power or outside zone?
Yeah, exactly. If you really want to go for it and score the touchdown, use a running back. Don't use your second string quarterback to try and do it. Felt like a mistake, coaching mistake.
Or I'd rather do a trick play from 2 yards. Something to try and confuse the defense rather than a QB sneak from 2. Doesn't make sense.
Oh well, that's it then for the Ravens, and a decent unit, but no real star players go home, and of course they won't have a star player next year at quarterback. So
there is one thing to mention though, that Joe Burrow has now been sacked 70 times this season, and that's third most in NFL history, behind only David Carr, who was sacked a million.
They've definitely improved then, because I watched one of our old YouTube videos earlier today, and I think it was after week 2, and we were talking about the 0-2 teams. And at that point, Burrow was on target to be sacked for 100 sacks in the season.
So they have improved.
They've definitely improved.
I mean, the thing is, he's still got one more game. If he gets 2 more sacks, he moves into second spot ahead of Randall Cunningham. If he gets 6 more sacks, then he will move into first place ahead of David Carr.
Is that including playoffs, or is
that's
that
including
just
playoffs?
That's including playoffs.
We can't get the playoffs.
And let's not. Well, this is true, but let's not also forget that it was only last year when the Titans played. When the Bengals played the Titans, he got sacked 9 times in one game.
9 times.
He did. Yeah.
So,
hit 16, wasn't he?
He could still reach 100. Let's not.
Yeah.
Let's not rule it
True.
out.
How far they go, but it's going to be an interesting game between him and also sloppy Bills. So, last game, and Monday night, welly, what have we here? A Tom Brady team that was shut out in the first half of a playoff game since he played the Raiders in 2001. A Bucs defense that couldn't get pressure on Dak Prescott or cover downfield. A non-existent Tampa run game and conservative play calling. It's almost like the Buccaneers got into the playoffs with a losing record because they play in the worst division in the worst conference in football. Thankfully, the Cowboys didn't beat themselves in the postseason. Dak Prescott had Dallas up by 3 touchdowns at halftime, 2 to Dalton Schultz, 1 a bootleg on a fake handoff that reminded me of Peyton Manning doing that to the Cowboys when he was in Denver. Brady had also been picked in the red zone while seemingly trying to throw the ball away. A touchdown pass to Michael Gallup early in the third quarter had the Cowboys up 24-0. It should have been 28-0, but Brett Maher was having a waking nightmare of a game, missing 4 extra points in a row. The Bucs did get a couple of touchdowns in the second half, the first a 40-yard prayer to Julio Jones on the last play of the third quarter, the second a pass to Cameron Brate, but a CeeDee Lamb touchdown catch on a blown coverage and successful extra point kick had the Cowboys easing off already. The final score was the Cowboys 31, Buccaneers 14.
I'm going to sound like a broken record, and I apologize, because every time we talk about the Bucs lately, I say the same thing. I don't want someone in their mid-40s throwing the ball 66 times. And success is not conducive to a team who only run the ball 12 times in an entire game.
Is it not?
Now,
okay.
I know that Todd Bowles says, okay, we don't run the ball, but we've never run the ball. It's not an excuse. That's not an excuse. That's like saying, all right, I'm massively overweight and I don't exercise, but I've never exercised. Yeah, that's why you are where you are. Come on, let's start running the ball. You've got playoff Lenny. Let's start using him. I mean, it's not rocket science. You can't ask Tom Brady to throw the ball 66 times. And a lot of the time, teams throw the ball because they're so far behind. That wasn't the case. Heading out of the first quarter, it was only 6-0.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as though they were taking a pounding. Going back to that plan A, if plan A doesn't work, what do you do? Give it Tom Brady. What's plan B? Give it Tom Brady. What's plan C? There was nothing out the back of it. It just felt like for the first time, Brady was clueless in a playoff game.
Look, I'm not sure if it's Brady was clueless or just actually the Cowboys played up to the potential that we thought the Cowboys could play up to.
I think
Mike Evans certainly didn't have a good game. He didn't have a good game. Look, at the end of the day, if you're struggling and you want someone to take over the game and kind of get your team there, then who better than the 7-time Super Bowl champion? But on the flip side, he can't do it on his own. I think his ex-missus said once he can throw the ball, but he can't catch it as well.
Oh wow! Okay, so he's got no blame for this game then, has he? This is Tom Brady's team.
No.
He kicked out Bruce Arians. This is his play design.
No blame for this game. What I'm saying is that the coaches have to understand that just saying Tom Brady throw it is not going to win you the game when he's 46 years old. You have to have Mike Evans catching the ball. Yeah, but if Mike Evans isn't going to catch the ball for him, then it doesn't matter what Tom Brady does, does it?
Do you know what's hilarious?
You might as well have put me at quarterback. I'd have thrown it 66 times and had it caught as many times.
So what's hilarious is that for all the years we've been doing this podcast, Punk has been roasting Tom Brady non-stop, and now it looks in the off-season. Yeah, now it looks in the off-season like Tom Brady might be going to the Raiders. He's starting to.
He won't be.
He
won't be.
That's it.
Look, Brady's out the playoffs. I said last week, that teams had been stupid in allowing the Bucs to get to there. The Lions have done everyone a favour by squashing Rodgers out.
Yep.
Now we've got rid of Brady. We've actually got a decent core of quarterbacks in the playoffs. They're all young quarterbacks. It's the next generation. All right, I'll give Mahomes a bit of a crossover in that he's probably the clubhouse leader. But
that's the oldest. 28.
You don't want Rodgers and Brady in there anymore. Tom Brady should not be getting to the playoffs in the NFL. It's it is like you said in the review, Jim. It's testament to how bad that division was that he's even there. Yeah. So unfortunately, what this means is that he might think in the back of his head, "Oh, I've got another season in me," but realistically, he hasn't. He should just retire, disappear, and let's never hear of him or speak of him again.
Yeah, the fact that they're in as NFC South winners with a record of 8-9 says literally everything.
Exactly.
We've seen NFC teams finish the season with 8-9 and get through to the playoffs before. It's not 8-8.
It's not the first time. 8-8.
No, absolutely. It's not the first time. But it's not the first time. But they are easily the weakest NFC team in there, and they showed up to be that.
But I also think we need to give a bit of praise to Dak Prescott. I think he played about as well as he probably can, to be honest. I think that was the Dak Prescott game we've been kind of looking for this season. But, the question with Prescott has not been, can he make the throws? It's, can he be consistently making the good decisions and, not just coughing the ball up or throwing tantrums when it's not going his way and so on and so forth. So now what he needs to do is string that together with another game. It could be a maturation process for him. Who knows? But
there was a couple of points where he did show a couple of stupid moments where on second down he was stretching to get the first down completed and unnecessarily went in for a tackle with a linebacker, and it's just like, dude, just take a knee and take a third and short. You don't need to be going in like that, especially with what happened last year. So there's a couple of little bits in there, but generally, it was a faultless game.
Yeah, I mean, you can throw the ball, you just can't kick it as well, because other's it'd been even more of a blowout.
I mean, Parr has got to be worried for his job. I'd be amazed if the Cowboys weren't holding kicking tryouts by Tuesday.
Shame. He's had such a good season. He's only missed 3 all season, and then he does that. Sometimes you just have those games.
The thing was,
it's one of those days when nothing was going to go
when you were watching it, he didn't adjust. Every single one of those misses was exactly the same.
Well, 1, 2, and 4.
Just adjust your body shape by 5 degrees, and they would have flown in. But
he went left. The others went right or hit the right stanchion. So
yeah.
We got the 5th one in. The 5th one went in. So
great.
Maybe it was last got it out of system.
Yeah. Through muscle memory, you should get 3 of 5. Just without looking, you should get 3 of 5.
They were saying on the broadcast he should have had a long field goal. You needed a long field goal to kind of shake it off, basically.
Just to cleanse the palate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But Jerry Jones is, the most loyal GM to his guys. So he'll be back next week. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, it's like Mason Crosby, basically. Just settle in. Well, that's it. Those are the games. Before we go, Punk, can we have some power plays from you? Is it possible?
You can have some power plays. Yes. There are some power plays. Amazingly, for what was usually Wildcard weekend's a bit destructive and teams winning by blowouts and so on and so forth. This was actually a really good wildcard weekend, which makes me a little bit worried for next week. But here we go, power plays then. So you've got 4th and 1 at your opponent's 40 with 1 minute 28 remaining. You sneak the ball with the QB to get your first down, yeah? Agreed? 4th and 1 minute 28. Yeah, of course you do. No, not if you're Jacksonville and you're trying to complete the 3rd largest comeback in NFL playoff history. Instead, what you do is hand the ball to Travis Etienne, who runs right, makes it to the corner, and turns the ball upfield for a gain of 25 yards to the 15-yard line and makes your game-winning field goal pretty much a formality. Great play design, great execution. It was the fact that they lined up literally to either kneel down or run a QB sneak. It would almost look like victory formation. And instead, they just turn around, hand the ball to Etienne, and let him run. And, ballsy play call at that point in the game as well. Knowing that if anything goes wrong there, then you're probably hitting a 58, 60-yarder. So, big up to the Jags. Off to Buffalo. Zach Sieler's fumble, scoop, and score at the start of the 3rd quarter to put the Dolphins up for the first time in the game after being in a 17-point hole. Buffalo have 1st and 10 on their own 30. Early 3rd quarter. Eric Rowe, the safety, however, comes on a corner blitz completely unblocked. Isn't picked up at all. In fact, Singletary runs straight past him. He hits Allen and starts to spin him down to the ground when he manages to pop the ball loose. Sieler then scoops it up, falls into the end zone for a 23-17 Dolphins lead. At that point, I think the Dolphins had scored pretty much 17-3. And so the momentum had completely shifted in their favor at that point because everyone assumed that the Bills were coming out and just going to blow them away at the beginning of the second half. So, yeah, definitely a power play there from Zach Sieler. It's a 3rd and 1 at their own 20 with 7 minutes left in the game. And Josh Allen takes the snap, takes a 5-step drop and launches the ball towards midfield, where number 10, Khalil Shakir, has created separation from the defender, but the ball is completely overthrown. That is until Shakir climbs a ladder and hauls the ball in at full stretch. Reason this is in the power plays? It's a great athletic play from Shakir, but if he doesn't make that catch, then there is a Dolphin safety literally lurking about 2 yards behind him that's just going to catch that ball and return it for a massive, massive game for the Dolphins. So Shakir pretty much wins the game for the Bills with that catch. Moving on to Minnesota. Saquon Barkley's 2nd touchdown of the game on Sunday to give the Giants their 31-24 lead with 7:47 to play. This to me is the definition of a power play. On 1st and goal from the 3, he takes the handoff, is met at the line of scrimmage by 6'3", 325-pound Dalvin Tomlinson. That doesn't stop him though or faze Barkley, as all he does is he drops a gear, shows his immense leg strength, and just powers through the tackle and over the line, carrying Tomlinson into the end zone. Again, just huge. It shows off Barkley's leg strength. It's just a ridiculous thing. Big man rumbling with football. We like these. So, 3rd and goal with the 11:55 remaining, and the Ravens are at the Bengals 2-yard line. As you'll have heard in the review, the Ravens decided to sneak Huntley rather than running back. So Huntley takes the snap, aims to dive over the top, a la Brady. However, Logan Wilson punches the ball out, and Sam Hubbard scoops it up and takes off. About 20 seconds later, because, takes big old number 90s a while to get up the other end. Although he did reach a top speed of 17 miles an hour, and his entourage ensured that Mark Andrews couldn't get him from behind, what gives Bengals the victory and is the longest fumble return touchdown in NFL postseason history. Now, that's a pub quiz question when in a few years' time, because everyone will assume it'll be an Ed Reed or some kind of nifty, quick cornerback that would have that stat. But no, it's big old Sam Hubbard.
Well, James Harris has got the longest interception return for a touchdown in postseason history.
That was in the Super Bowl, wasn't it?
It was against the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Is that power play on the guy who punched it out? Did you say it was Logan Ryan?
No, it's Logan Wilson.
Wilson.
No,
Wilson.
no,
Or is
it's
that...
not. It's Sam Hubbard. being
Doesn't
able to run 98 yards without getting caught. I mean, he did sit on the sideline and suck the oxygen down afterwards, but fair play to the big man to be able to get that far without running out of steam. However, it was interesting that Mark Andrews was the only Raven that seemed to be chasing him back. Everyone else had seemed to have given up on it almost immediately. Whether that's because they hadn't noticed the fumble or what, I don't know. But
is the power play then to the person that illegally pushed Mark Andrews in the back to tackle him when he was trying to charge down the defensive end?
That is
what
not
do you
getting
care?
called.
You're a
That is
Pittsburgh
not
fan.
getting called in a playoff game.
Not in Cincinnati.
There's no way.
Listen, watch
Let
it again.
the
Watch it
players
again because
play.
Yeah,
they knock over Andrews and he puts his hands up like, "Oh no, I didn't touch him. I didn't touch him."
Yeah.
Like,
No, it's illegal.
So,
Illegal
ref
blocking
didn't
the
call
back,
it. It didn't
but
happen.
There's no way that's getting called in the playoff game. Not on a 90.
Ref didn't call it. It didn't happen.
And if it had
Right,
been
carrying
called,
on.
it would have been pulled up as a red zone anyway, so it would have been fine.
We're derailing the power
We
plays.
got one
Sorry.
more.
Okay.
One more to get through.
Mhm.
So, Tony Pollard's third quarter run on 1st and 10 at the Bucks 22. He's handed the ball, heads outside to the right. He patiently waits for his O-line, who are absolutely perfect on their blocking. Every single man has picked up a hat, pushed them to the side, created the hole, allowing Pollard to then burst upfield, break 3 tackles. Eventually, he's pushed out of 3. Just again, mainly for the offensive line, giving the big boys a bit of credit there for perfect play execution and getting him in there. There are a couple of honourable mentions. People will have noticed that there wasn't a play from the 49ers game with the Seahawks in there. Honourable mention to Deebo Samuels and his 74-yard touchdown. But not quite enough going on there from the Ayuk and Kittle blocks for me to get him in the power plays. Dawson Knox's one-handed catch for the touchdown almost made it in there. And Julio Jones's touchdown almost made it in there as well. Because, Julio's been a great receiver for many, many years. He's found himself in a bit of a crap system for him in Tampa. But it really was kind of like watching Julio from about 7 or 8 years ago when he one-handed that. So, yeah, there we go. And then a little bit of pain this week as well. I know we haven't done this for a few weeks, but Punk's pain. Punk's playoff pain. When are these playoff teams going to start taking clock management seriously? I mean, some of the timeouts that have been called and Dolphins, Ravens, and Vikings all costing themselves extra plays with just really bad clock management. I'm not going to pick on any one of them individually, but all 3 of them need to take a good, long, hard look at themselves in the off-season and go, why am I doing that?
Well, Dolphins have an excuse,
ridiculous.
right? Dolphins were in Buffalo with a third-string quarterback who hasn't had the reps. So there were times when they just didn't know the play. He was trying to hear what the play was.
Yeah,
I
get that, but they were also just wasting time getting to the line.
True.
When they're down by 3 with less than a minute on the clock. So
there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there was a lot going on.
You're right.
But
there should be better.
We're in the
management.
playoffs. This is supposed to be the best of the best. We need to have decent clock management.
Yeah. So
there you go.
Thank you for some pain.
Yeah, this was Skylar Thompson versus Brock Purdy. This was not the best of the best. What I'm saying is this is them two in terms of in the playoffs. Those two are both in it, 7 rounders. This is not the best of the best. I know they didn't play each other, but
Brock Purdy went through and Tom Brady did. So
these are the best coaches with the best teams and the best quarterbacks that those teams have available. So
in fact,
they are the best.
And the Chargers.
If we can just lose the Bengals now, I'll be absolutely fine with any of the other teams winning the Super Bowl. I'll be fine with any of them.
Not the Cowboys.
I don't care. Honestly, don't care. I mean, it's funny. It's funny to see the Cowboys not winning it, but I really don't care about the others. Like, I wouldn't be angry. I wouldn't be angry at the others.
Not again.
We're going to talk about the games that are coming up this weekend on a separate podcast that's going to be doing the rounds very shortly. But for this one, this is just a review only podcast. We have reviewed the pod. So we've reviewed the games. So it's time for us to go and
reviewed the pod. I give it 5 stars. I think we should get 5 stars.
People should be giving it 5 stars.
Pod.
Absolutely.
This is definitely a 5-star.
Spotify for Anchor, and give us 5 stars if you can.
I give myself 3
YouTube.
stars.
We're on YouTube now as well.
We try to be on
loads
YouTube,
of videos up on
We try to
YouTube.
get through the copyright strikes on YouTube, so
There's-
have a watch on there if you can.
In last week's pod, we even managed to get the power plays up on the YouTube video. So, you can actually understand what I'm rambling about when I'm talking at 100 mile an hour. And
Try and do it again. I'll try and do it again, don't worry. But
We can see it. We can't always understand it, but we can definitely see it.
We'll see something. Whether you agree with it or not is another one. But yeah, guys, until next time, I've been Jim, that's been Dave, that's been Puck Raider. Thank you very much for listening.